Here we go. We got Grady. There he is.
What's up, brother?
What's up, man?
Nothing.
We got
Hanging
this?
out.
We're good?
You too, man.
Good, man. Good. What are you wearing, a hoodie, man? What's the temperature in Texas?
73 right now, but
Nice.
it's like I like
It's
to keep
60. I'm wearing a beanie, and it's 60 degrees out, and it's 73. You're wearing a hooded sweatshirt.
It's kind of a habit for me being old, man. Just got the hoodie and the shorts on. I don't know why.
I know, man. Are you quarantining yourself? What's going on?
Yeah, we're let me turn that off. We're doing the best we can, I had to go out to Walgreens today and get meds and things like that, but other than that, man, we're staying home and teaching school and all the same stuff you're doing, I'm sure.
Like the rest of the world, man. So anywho, let's chat. Let's chat Dimebag. That's what everyone.
Yeah, man.
And why don't you tell everybody, how long have you known Dime, and how long did you work with him?
I met him, I've known him since like ninth grade.
Wow.
We went to the same junior high and we didn't fall in the same circles now, but, but I knew him then. And then when I started playing, music and stuff, we got the chance to, my little club band got the chance to open up for Pantera, and we just reunited a friendship. And
That's cool.
And after all the gigs that we played together, it was something like, 150 club gigs together. He just asked me to become his tech when they got signed. So, and then that ran till, the very end of the Pantera years.
Well, what year was it that you started with him?
89.
89. So
Yeah.
it was before the Cowboys record.
Spent all of 87 and 88 in a band opening up for them, so, and that was like the years that we became just tight friends every day, everyday friends,
That's cool. And well, speaking of Cowboys from Hell, you helped create the ikmultimedia Dimebag Darrell CFH collection, which is based on recording the gear Dime used on a Cowboys from Hell record.
Well, thanks to you,
Yeah. Well, the first question I had before we kind of get into gear, what are your memories from being in the studio with those guys during the making of that record? Because that record basically started. I mean, it didn't start at all for Pantera, but in the public spotlight it did. So, what are your memories from that?
I remember that. When Terry Date got there, that it's like that's when it got down to business, and I remember us going and grabbing different things from his house to try and getting all set up in there, and that was actually my first experience with a strobe tuner, so I was like really green, and I just remember them just going in and just being so powerful, yeah. and just nailing it,
Well, I know when we modeled the gear, we got one of the original Randall RG amplifiers, the 100 ES. It was
right.
So we modeled that, and then obviously with the cabinets as well. Do you know how many different before we get to cabinets, how many different amplifiers he was running in the studio? Was he just using the one Randall, or was he going multiple?
It was just the RG100.
Just the one. Just the
yep.
one going through, which is awesome.
It was a real basic rig,
Yeah. And what about the jazz amp, the Roland? So I know he used that for the clean tones.
Yeah. We didn't take that live on, out with us live or whatever, but we had one, for clean tones, and that we used in the studio. It was just like the prenuptial. It was just the best amp ever for clean. It was like,
still is.
If you can't get a clean tone out of a jazz chorus, then you can't get a clean tone.
Yeah. And then we went as far as with the pedals. We did, a bunch of different stop boxes. I know the noise gates and the flanger doublers and all that stuff. So just kind
Right.
of going, pedal by pedal let's start with the flanger doubler. How did he necessarily incorporate that into the live rig versus the studio rig?
The live rig, we just ran it through one cabinet. It's like we had a wet and a dry cabinet. Dry cabinet just went to Vinny with no effects, but the wet cabinet was like his monitor mix and coming out of his cabinets. And we ran it in the loop, and we ran it also with it was just a mild doubler setting, for rhythms. And then I was, on live as far as like on slurs and leads and whammy bar dives, I was free to experiment with flanges and extra doubles and
Oh, wow.
quick rates, and we just kind of have fun together.
Did he again with these pedals? Did he have multiples that he used in conjunction, or was it just one of the at a time?
No, we just had a doubler, and it's a simple setup. It was just basically, the doubler coming through the loop, and then the wah, the gate, and the two EQs.
Yeah. Well, before I move on, just with going over the other pedals, I just want to let everyone know that we're going to give away a copy of Dimebag CFH software for the
Hell
iOS.
yeah.
So if you have an iPad, iPhone, we'll give one away. I'll let you pick.
Okay.
We'll come up with a crazy idea on how we could trick all these folks out. Let's see if they're paying attention to gear and whatnot. Let's see.
There's a lot of people paying attention, man.
Yeah, well, let's see. But so just going back to the pedals, what about the Rocktron, the Hush noise gate? Now that was integral too.
In the beginning, I mean, the whole career, his whole career, it was integral. At first he just had like a stomp box, which he did himself. But when the 2B came out, and that was before my time. That was his club gigs or whatever. But when we had the 2B rack mount, it was a basic fast and slow release and then a threshold, so yeah. I could goof with it while he was playing, and tighten it up. And, there's like, a good example is there's numerous videos of him playing, like it'll be something like walk and he'll go gunk, I know, and it'll feed back. And then you'll see him like glare at me and I'm like, yeah, I get it. It's got to tighten the gate up. Cause it was never it was never something that was just set. It was in a live atmosphere. It was always getting messed with.
And one of the other pedals that we did that a lot of people know Dime for is the wah, the Dunlop wah.
Yeah.
Obviously, there were signature versions made by Dunlop for him, but obviously during the Cowboys era, he didn't have a signature version yet.
No.
So, which Dunlop wah, if you can remember, did you guys use during the Cowboys era?
It was just the G95, just the straight up regular Dunlop private. Yeah.
Yeah. And how, I know, a lot of people, it's funny, I just saw this the other day, Kirk Hammett had a wah competition against some dude dressed up in his dress. And I was like, what's going on here? I didn't know what that was. But it automatically, when I think of wah, I think of Dime. Dime's like one of the first people that comes to my mind. Dime, right. Obviously Kirk does, Zach, big time. But Dime always comes to my mind as the predominant metal wah player.
It was hooked up to his fingers.
Yeah, and it is. It's all fingers and feeling between the hand and the foot, and getting that going there. But with the wah, it was the EQ pedal that he used as well. How did he use that again in the early times?
Man, it was just guitar, and then it was just straight into the 6-band, in the frown shape, the 4 and 800 boost, and that was like, that's where we went from there.
That's 6-band EQ as far as within the software. It's one of my go-to EQs throughout. The developers in my opinion, they nailed the model on this entire collection. But on the 6-band EQ, to me, it's that's my top. Out of all the pedals or all the effects that they offer with an amplitude, that's my number one. And
it's amazing. It's amazing what it can do when you just stick it in front of your stuff.
yeah,
You know,
no,
I mean,
exactly.
you just plug it in and you're like, whoa, holy cow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he also had the PQ3 as well.
Right.
So you have the 6-band EQ, then you have the PQ3, and then obviously some. Now, were they ever all used at one time in one chain, or was it just kind of a?
It was all one chain. You know,
one chain.
Yep, we went from the 6-band into the PQ3, and then for certain, I don't have any of the documentation from Cowboys or anything, but I just know that on certain songs we'd never change the blue EQ. You know, that's what it was. But
You never change your settings on that ever.
No, the thing was just taped, and that's what it was. It was just the 4 and 800, you know, boost, and it was just solid. You know, it was like just took that out of the equation. But we would always adjust the PQ3. You know, that would be something that we'd adjust for different songs and different parts in songs and things like that. You know,
what about his amps? You know, obviously with any amp, when you're playing in a room, every room's different. So you have to adjust the amp and you have to adjust tone for the room and for the audience, and you know, and that goes without saying. But for the most part, though, besides those minor tweaks within adjusting for the room, has the tones or the, you know, all the different controls on the amplifier ever changed dramatically?
The amps rarely changed at all. It was just the volume changed, but the EQ didn't ever really change on the amps. You know, you know, like I said, it was the PQ3 that was always the go-to in studio and live, you know, on parts that, you know, I would try to emulate like some settings live. You know, some nights if we just weren't getting the gain that we needed, you know, I would input on that a little bit, a few dB. Frequency here and there, dB. You know, he also, one thing about his rig in the early days is that the first time that he allowed me to play his guitar, he was like, the first thing he said was
allowed.
He goes, yeah, he handed it to me to play Seek and Destroy or something, but he's like, dude, don't turn the guitar all the way up. And I'm like, why? And he goes, because it'll feed back. And so I hit the volume. I was like, I was like, whoa, you know? I mean, it was a really sensitive, hot guitar rig from day one. You know, we just learned how to control it a little better, you know, in a live setting between the two of us.
Well, speaking of guitars, you actually have one of Dime's personal guitars with you right now, don't you?
I do.
Let's take a look at that.
Let's look at that baby.
Let's get some wows out there. Wows.
Wowza.
There it is.
So, all right. Yeah, this is his Wavy Rebel Stealth. And then, of course, the back plate's missing, as in, like, all the guitars that I ever worked on for him don't have back plates for some reason. I don't know what my deal was. But yeah, Rita gave this to me. And it's just my most prized possession. That's all I can tell you.
No. Well, you want to see one of my most prized possessions?
Absolutely.
Also a Washburn.
Culprit?
The Culprit, which Dime signed for me back in 2001.
Oh, nice.
Which it's even rusted. The strings are rusted. This thing makes some crazy noise. The whammy bar makes a crazy noise that definitely sounds like it needs WD-40 or something going on.
Sure.
But he was the last person to play this. Don was the last person to play this guitar. And I've had it in a case for about 12 years now. And today was the first time I took it out of that case.
Nice.
So yeah, this is my guitar prized possession. And
I remember us laying on the floor in the studio with opening up Home Depot boxes or whatever to get a good surface and getting Sharpies and drawing a guitar. You know, it's like I was studying architecture when I met him, you know, and then kind of in college doing architecture on the ground floor CAD. And he would always go, dude, you know, let's use your CAD skills, use your architecture skills, and help design this thing, you know. Yeah, I never got that far, man.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question. I know, Dime with gear, there seems to be two, and it could be three periods. It started with, Dean guitars way back.
Right.
Way back. Then he went to Washburn. I would say the primarily of that Pantera career was Washburn. And then towards the end was Dean guitars.
Right.
What made him go back to Dean?
Just the Washburn thing, I guess, it just run its course, I don't think, I think some other things, some other activities were being done that he wasn't aware about, and Dean was getting back in business and he wanted to get back to his roots, and it was funny, back in the early days with the Deans that we had, we didn't have, we didn't really have like the money to just go out and buy stuff, like the Stuart McDonald order was like, like God sending down a big present because we couldn't really afford much. But, the Deans were all just piecemeal. I would find saddles off other guitars and stick them in, and we just make it work however it was. And then when Washburn came around, it was great, because there were guitars that I would have to do relatively little work to just to get them in his hands and get him playing live,
Well, especially from working with you on the CFH software and going through the gear, especially going through, we concentrate on the Cowboys from Hell era.
Right.
Gear. But it just seems that he was keen, Dime seemed to be very keen early on about gear, settings, tone, his very particular ways, and how he plays. Now, is that something that evolved over the years? Did he ever go back and forth? What was what you can remember his I guess his mindset there?
He was really set in his ways. Once I got to know, what his thoughts were and our relationship grew and everything, it was like just total trust in me. He'd like come out on stage and I used to have these silver caps back there, and he'd go, "Dude, is it caps?" Because when they'd show up when I smiled, I go, "Yeah, it's caps, dude."
Yeah.
But he switched when the PQ4 came out. He switched to that for a while. Trendkill, he switched back to the PQ3, and then he switched back to the PQ4. But he was always very particular on what he wanted dirty wise. On the clean side, he would let me mess around with ideas and things like that. He'd let me come up with stuff to clean sounds and things.
Well, if I heard what you said earlier, the culprit, is that something that you drew out actually on a piece of cardboard?
Me and him both, yeah. We were laying on the floor in the studio, and he was yelling at me. He was yelling at me about my architecture skills, and because I'd mess up or something, and he's like, "You're the damn architect," and
and just I think now would be a good time. We're about 20 minutes in. We spoke a lot about gear, and I want to ask the first person that names. Do we want to give it an amplifier or a pedal? Which one? It's up to you, man.
So what was the question again? I missed it.
The first person to name any one of the 5 pedals we just named and we worked on, the actual real name of the pedal will win the iOS Dimebag Darrell software. So let's take a look at these comments here. The first person to name any one of the 5 pedals, the correct name, wins.
Oh, no.
No, that's not a PQ4. Let's see who's paying attention.
No, not getting it. Struggling. Well, there was. G95 had one. I don't know how to go back.
Flanger Doubler 126.
There you go. OG Paintball.
Is that it?
Yeah. Stuff's going by so fast, man.
All right, so I guess the Flanger Doubler. Who was that?
How do we go back?
OG Paintball.
There he is.
OG Paintball's got to send us a DM, and we'll send you a DM too.
Right on.
And we'll give away one more piece of software for iOS
Okay.
in another few minutes. So moving forward now, the cabinets.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we use the 412. We call it the Darrell 412 within the software. How many cabinets did he use in the studio recording versus live during the Cowboys era?
I think we just had in the studio. I'm pretty sure we just mic'd up one cabinet.
One. That's it.
Yeah. It might have been two, but I think we had two mics on one of the Jaguars. You know, one of the cabinets loaded with the Jags.
Yeah. Well, that's obviously what we emulated with the software here. But you know, same thing with the cabinet. We used the Roland cabinet as well to coincide with the Jazz Chorus amplifier.
Right.
But now, Terry Date, when he did this record, did he have any tricks? If you remember, any tricks that he did in the studio between miking technique and or getting some of that tone to cross over from, I would assume, the live room to the fountain hall?
The Neve stuff, you know, it's like I can't remember exactly what he had. The one memory that I have of Terry coming in was they started with, and it's a drum memory, you know, not a dime memory, but when they came in and he came in, the first thing they were doing was Domination, and they just ripped into it, and Vinny did the whole, you know, take on the whole song on one take, and
Oh, wow.
Terry sat there with the metronome and was like, oh, I don't need this fucking thing.
Yeah. Well, Dime's tuning was never a standard tuning.
Oh, no.
It was. I'm going to ask this question, and hopefully we can get this answer, because I've been asked this a million times from the likes of a lot of Dime's friends, a lot of our peers. How exactly did he tune a guitar? Or how did you tune that guitar for him?
It was just a quarter step down. Okay. You know, not a full half step. And it was just like a quarter step down. And then, you know, all I remember is that when we got the DT1s, the Korg DT1 tuners, it was like, you got to put it on plus 40 but make it D sharp plus 40. And I was like, okay, well then there's 10 cents on either side difference in tuning.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, well, just make that light go on, you know, just make it, circle that, you know, with the grease pencil and make sure it's tuned to that. And I'm like,
so was it 10 cents north or south of 440?
It was like G sharp plus 440.
D sharp plus 440.
Right. So it was a quarter step and a weird kind of quarter step, you know, and then, you know, I've noticed that when I take that same tuning to what I've got, it depends on what I'm listening to Pantera on, because, you know, depending on the speed of whatever you're listening to it on, the tuning's it's goofy, you know. I mean, it was never something that was, you know, I never tuned to the middle of anything. It was always to the plus 40 cents.
Oh, wow.
So there could be a big leeway in between, you know.
Was that, did he ever go half step or full step, or was always?
It was always, even like, you know, Walk or whatever that was in like C sharp, but it was still C sharp plus 40, you know,
40.
so a step and a quarter instead of a step and a half.
Also known as dime tuning.
Very bizarre, you know, but I think it was just in the old days just to give, you know, Philip a little, you know, they didn't want to drop the whole half step, you know, like the Van Halen. They wanted to just drop a little, so I guess to maybe help the high notes and stuff back in the day. And it just kind of evolved into that weirdness, you know.
You know, I just saw a great question pop up over here, which actually makes me wonder. K Strings 09 asked, how did you intonate that? So yes, how did you intonate that when you were setting up the guitar and doing intonation and whatnot?
Probably just as best I could, you know.
Yeah.
It you know, it was just, and it was maybe just one of the feel things and the sound things, and just like, you know, we'd play and they'd go, okay, well, this is out of intonation, and it would just be kind of a mess with it until you heard it right. You know, and then the live stuff, we'd switch so much that it just, you know, you can't really tell.
So I'm assuming Rex had to kind of guess his tuning then.
And Rex was the same way.
But so Dime started, Rex followed suit on that?
Right.
Yep.
It was just weird when we got those DT1s because I was like, we're going to tune it to that? Okay. You know, and I wasn't, like, again, I wasn't the most knowledgeable tech in the world back then. So that's just what it evolved into, you know, that's how we got to a quarter step, dude. It was basically, you know.
Do you know of any other guitar players that tune like that? I don't.
No.
In my circle of metal guitarists who I work with, and play with, which is a lot, it's either a half step or a full step. It's never 440. It's either a half step down or a full step down. And
it's almost like you have to have if you've got a floating guitar, you have to have a special guitar set up for Pantera tuning, you know, and it's probably a pain.
So we had a great question, and I'm going to start reading off some questions here.
Sure.
And we were asked, what is your favorite guitar of Dime's?
You know, of course I love the Dean from Hell. You know, that one felt the most natural to me. But my favorite Washburn was the Dime Slime. You know, that neck was really just smoking fast feeling to me, you know, had a really good V shape and just felt great.
Now, what about another question we have here? Didn't Dime use Canadian high gain tube amps?
We used a Wizard amp on as like an add-on on parts of Far Beyond Driven in the studio until it blew up, and then that was the end of that.
Well, what about he had a brief stint there with Crank too?
Yeah, he did. And I wasn't, you know, I just wasn't around at that period. I was touring a lot, and you know, I just wasn't involved in his day-to-day stuff, you know.
That was the Damage Plan era, correct?
Yeah, I was there, you know, in the very beginning to help get some tones and some things like that. But then I went out with Stained for, you know, years after that, and so I just got busy, you know, you know, I wish I could have been around for that. I really do, you know, but it's just one of those things, man.
Well, we all know that we wish certain events didn't happen. And,
of course,
you know, that Damage Plan era, you know, obviously I love the record, but it's a kind of a period in time where a lot of us don't really like talking about, you know.
I know.
As far as, you know, what happened.
I can tell everybody this. I can tell everybody this though. I was working with Stained, and I'd come home like at the very beginning of December, and he had called me. You know, it was like just a week before, and said that you know, he's done fired everybody, and now he's teching for himself. And can I come up there and finish the tour out? There was only a week left, and I said, yeah, I can. You know, sure, man. And you know, he's like, I said, I just got home yesterday from tour, but I can, you know, whatever you need me to do, man. You know, and he goes, well, let me call Bushman, which is John Graham, and he goes, and see if he can come out and get me through this. And he goes, but we got to rebuild my guitar rig when I get home, because I'm stepping on my own pedals and switching on my own wirelesses. And when that failed, I'm on a cable, and I'm like, oh, we'll rebuild everything, you know. And so he goes, you know, let me call Bushman, see if he'll come up. He called Bushman. Bushman could go up, and you know, I just missed being there just by that phone call.
Oh,
you know, and all I can say is that I'm really glad that I wasn't. You know, I mean, who knows what would have happened? But it was just such a terrible time.
Yeah,
you know.
I know. It's funny. The last time I saw him was in New York City, which was right before that. Roseland Ballroom. It was Shadows Fall. Who was on that tour? Shadows Fall.
Yeah, Shadows Fall.
Damage Plan. Was it Unearthed on that? I don't remember.
I just remember Shadows Fall.
I remember Shadows Fall, but yeah, that was the last time I saw him. You know, but not turning a positive into a sour, so we can turn it back into a positive.
Hell yeah.
So
Celebrate.
now what we're gonna do is the first person that can name the amplifier used on the Dimebag Darrell Cowboys from Hell collection. The first person, the actual model number name, will win their choice of Dimebag software from ikmultimedia. So let's see who gets this right. RG100 ES, you got it. Benjamin 2198. Bingo. That was quick. All right. So Benjamin 2198, send us a direct message, and we'll take note as well to make sure you get that code.
Right on. Right on, Benjamin.
So I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Why don't you tell us your funniest dime story that is good for the public?
I got so many. You know, the one of them sticks out to me, which is, you know, there's tons of hell raising stories, Mark. You know, I mean, there's tons of hell raising stories of, you know, you're driving down the road, right? He's sitting in the passenger seat, and then you going by a line of mailboxes, and he'll just grab your car wheel and just drive you into like a mailbox or something. You know, I mean, just stuff like that. But it was my first house that my favorite story is the first house that we had bought. We just had a baby. Me and my wife, Garrett, he was an infant, and the air conditioner in my house went out, and it was, you know, it's Texas. It's a big deal. It's summer. And it turns out that I needed like a complete system, you know? And so, you know, I called him just going, dude, I'm screwed, man. You know, I need a whole new air conditioning system, and I can't afford it. And we're trying to figure out what to do. And, you know, not 2 hours later, you know, an AC company comes pulling up, and they replace the outside and inside and ductwork. They just redo the whole house. Took them, you know, a day and a half. And I was like, I'm like, dude, I'm not going to be able to pay you back for this. You know, I mean, it'd take a half a year's worth of salary. And he's like, don't worry about it, dude. We got to keep that baby cold.
That's awesome.
You know,
yeah, but that's the kind of guy he was. You know, I know Rita's watching. I saw Rita pop up. What's up, Rita?
Rita.
Yeah, and you know, she has I'm sure she has the most stories as well.
Oh, dude, you know how it is. You just sit down and just let her talk over dinner and just laugh your ass off for 2 solid hours. You know, on her good stories, man.
Well, the first time I met Rita, let's put it to you this way: it took me about 3 days to recover.
Yeah, especially the older we get, man.
Yes, especially. But, yeah, man, I appreciate your time.
It's good to see you, man.
Yeah, you too, man. Hopefully we'll be in the Texas area sooner rather than later.
Yes, well, you know, depending on what goes on, but I'll be there. You know, I'm following you and your endeavors and stuff, and you guys are awesome. You know,
yeah.
I mean, hell, dude, you know, you're playing with all the legends and just having a great time. You know,
I appreciate that, man.
Good on you, mate.
I appreciate it. It's a lot of ball busting, to say the least. You know, a lot of it. And,
right. Well, that's what it's all about.
You know, we've had, you know, back in the early days of MA, you know, Rex was a part of it. You know, fortunately, I'm probably one of the few, you know, that could say they wrote a song with Phil Anselmo.
There you go, man.
On our first record. So, yeah, I love all you guys. I appreciate it.
Godfather.
Yeah, we appreciate everything. I know IK appreciates everything. And we will continue the journey of Dime and Software Land. And,
well, thanks for making me a part, you know, and I'm ready for whatever, you know, comes our way, man. Let's do it.
Awesome. There'll be more. And again, man, I appreciate it. You enjoy Texas. Stay inside. Wash your hands. Don't use all the toilet paper.
We're stocked, man.
Yeah. I'm sure you should see it here, man. Can't buy anything anywhere here.
Well, we got, you know, there's 5 of us here. So we, you know, saw this happening and just got on Amazon and just started you know, doing our little stock up there. So we're doing fine. You know, it's just, if we can just keep the kids sane, then maybe we can be a little sane.
No, totally, man. Well, stay safe out there, and we'll definitely talk soon, man.
All right, man.
All right,
Peace.
brother.
Bye, everybody. Later.